15.
I'm fitting right in, aren't I? I'm just going to throw it to the wind. As a comedian, which I do part-time, free speech is very easy to explain. If more than 80% of the people are laughing, then it shouldn't be free anymore. You should charge a lot of money. And people ask me, how can you tell when you've stepped over the mark? You know, when as a performer you've jumped over the cliff of tastelessness. You will know that because you will be facing a room full of silence. You have died in a way. You are sort of in a standing coma. It should never, never happen to you, please. I mean, there'll always be people who do laugh, but that's because they're insane or they come from Alabama. But, you know, if a line is delivered brilliantly and the timing is perfect, all is forgiven. Because great comedy sort of shocks you out of your old stagnant way of seeing the world. It just gives you a new paradigm and knocks us all off our self-righteous plinths. The original job of the comedian, may I remind you, is to hold up the mirrors to the audience and say, do you see how ridiculous we are? This all started with Greek comedy, so I'm not making this up. But outside of comedy, I'm not going to go on where I believe free speech ends and digging the dirt starts. Free speech is in the mouth of the beholder. And we all know deep down when somebody is actually fighting for a cause and when somebody is actually dishing the dirt. That's the beauty of democracy. It all goes under one banner. But the notion to me that the public must know everything, that they have a right to know where everything goes is very messy to me. I think it's important that the public should know that polar bears have nowhere to sit anymore because of lack of ice. And we can do something about that. We can start a charity and invite Sharon Stone to host it and let her cry and then collect some money. Sharon will cry for anything these days, especially herself. We should all have a benefit for Sharon. Free speech is important when women need to let people know that, yes, they can have very important roles now, but that they're paid something like $125,000 a year, which is 375,000 pounds in man money. It's also important to mention the disgrace that is happening in Notting Hill right now. That women are forced to do Pilates 5 times a week so that their pelvic floor is strong enough to be able to lift the carpet. They have to do this because when they get to be 40, they will be thrown to the dogs and be replaced by a firmer copy of themselves. Even slaves don't have to do so many sit-ups. We can fight for those injustices. But when you read that some footballer or some celebrity presenter placed his appendage into someone and how many times, what actually can the public do about it? We could take him to the village square, stick him in the stocks, and whip him. I know many people in here would love that. I'm not naming names. But let me just take you back in time. Just follow me on this one. Okay, when we were still apes and we sat around picking bugs off each other, that was us socializing. That was us bonding, and this is what mammals do. This is in our DNA. Time went on, and because we wanted to talk to each other, not pick the bugs, what we wanted to do was gossip, and so language came about. That's the only reason we talk to each other today. Gossip is what glues us together socially. The only reason the public need to know anything is so we have something to talk about at the hairdresser. And all those queens would just have nothing to say. They'd actually have to just do your hair. Total silence. Total silence. And Hello Magazine would just be blank pages, which I personally would prefer. You know, we used to have white picket fences to lean over and find out from the neighbors who was shagging who. We've lost the picket fence and the church where you could really get the weekly dirt. And now we depend on Twitter and tabloids to give us the gossip on people that we envy and want to be, and hopefully read something about that something really terrible has happened to them. Or maybe that's just me. Okay, here's part of the problem. I know this will be hard to follow too, but you asked me up here. So I think the problem is, just go along with me, okay? This may be the crux of the problem, that we as humans do not have one brain in our head. We actually have three brains. The very reptilian part of us did not disappear. It still lives within us. It's 300 million years old. It did not dissolve. And it alerts you to danger. It urges you to mate. It helps you breathe, sneeze, cough, blink. Then, many millions of years later, came a more advanced brain, which was the mammalian brain. And it ensures that, unlike reptiles, we learn to bond and nurture our young rather than eat them. And then we have the latest model, which is the executive brain right up here. This came online just a short while ago, and for some people, not yet. And it gives us morality, judgment, empathy, rational thought. We have three brains all running at once. I say in my show, this is why we're very confused. This is why there are women who like to read Heidegger but also want to screw the plumber. Say that in my show. But if we all pretend that we just are working from this higher moral brain, we are badly mistaken. Underneath this superior brain lies the gutter brain, the eat, screw, kill brain. This is a brain that likes to catch people taking cocaine with 50 hookers. And there, by the grace of God, go all of us. Or is this just me talking again? This is why tabloids have so many readers, because we all have that primitive brain where we fantasize very weird things, like having sex with 500 alligators. Or is that just me again? Okay, so if we want to use our higher brain, we can buy The Independent. And while I'm on this subject, sometimes being exposed by the press can work for you and turn your life around. About 15 years ago, I was in Barbados, and there was a front page of me saying something like celebrity nutter in the Priory. I snatched the paper out of the man's hand and tried to swallow it. We all laughed how stupid that was. The truth was I'd been there 2 months earlier. That was a close call. And then years later, I posed for a picture for Comic Relief for the mentally, for people with depression. And I thought it was just going to be a tiny little picture, but it was actually used as a large poster in tube stations. And when I got in there, I saw my poster and I hurled myself in front of it, but all the way down the escalator was another picture and another picture, and I just kept hurling myself all the way down. But anyway, I decided, okay, it's all over the place. I'll come out of the closet. And I became the poster girl of mental illness. It led me to write a show called Live from the Priory, which I just thought was audacious. And I invited my friends, and the inmates came, and there were wonderful moments where everybody was checking out who was actually a resident. Some people you could guess because they weren't facing forward. Anyway, after that, I did about a year's tour of NHS mental institutions, and believe me, if you can make a schizophrenic laugh, you've got a hit. So the show was then eventually called Losing It. It's not just about mental breakdowns, it's about the insanity of us all. We just finished a 10-week run at the Menier Chocolate Factory. I get that backwards. It was brought back because of popular demand. Now we're going to Edinburgh for 4 weeks, and after that we open in the West End. Now, let me tell you, after the interval every night, the audience are invited back in to talk. And if you think the English are reserved, think again. They are actually fighting for that microphone. Because mental illness is supposed to be 1 in 4 people, but even people without it always know somebody who has it, but nobody knows what to do about it or to get help. They don't know where to go, so what we've done is we've opened forums once a week where we invite unbelievable speakers like Camilla Batmangela, or we had Louis Walpert, or the dean of the psychiatric institution, remarkable speakers. And then Marjorie Wallace, who heads SANE, brings in about 20 professionals. And if you need help or you're a caretaker, which is even worse than having the illness, they'll tell you where to go in the country. All of this is free. Because the problem with people who have mental distress is we have nowhere to go. I mean, I'm always envious of people who have, you know, an alcoholic problem because they have kind of a thick yellow pages of where to go on every corner and have chocolate and cigarettes. And to me, it's remarkable because they're drunks. But they, but they got it together. But, you know, we who have a little bit of mental distress, 1 in 4, it's not a small amount of people, have nowhere to meet our own tribe. And, you know, being with others that have the same thing is half the cure. Now, wherever we're going to be performing this show, Losing It, we will always have these forums. So in a way, I'd like to say thank you to the editor for exposing me. You have changed my life. We used to not be able to say you were gay, then you couldn't say the C word, cancer, and then a long time ago, you couldn't even say you were a witch. Soon we'll be able to say that we have a mental illness because it physically exists. It is not our imagination. We are not seeking attention or being self-indulgent because we have nothing else to do with our day. It is a mental disease like any other disease in any other part of your body. And someday we'll be able to tell that to people without any shame. One day our day will come. Thank you to whoever the editor was.